Hey, Wember World Entertainment, and after watching episode 3 of Starfleet Academy, big questions really are raising regarding the hologram Sam. Now, the character makes no sense whatsoever, and it really is just this thing of they have a hologram problem. Now, it's bad enough that the ship's entire medical staff are holograms because that makes no sense. Nor did the fact that the ship said in episode 1 the holographic emitters are offline, and yet there were still holographic characters running around the bloody ship, including Sam. So the holo emitters were offline in the sick bay, and yet she was able to be in the sick bay. But so many other things are happening, including the fact that she's meant to have a species, which absolutely makes no sense. So she was a Cascane, I think is how you pronounce it, and the first photonic to attend Starfleet Academy. Sam was created on Kask in 3195, intended to be the first hologram with the sole purpose of integrating with organic life forms. She was programmed to feel and behave like a typical 17-year-old female human. 4 months after her activation, she joined the first cohort of cadets to attend Starfleet Academy in San Francisco since the burn. Everything in that just doesn't make sense. So technically this hologram is 4 months of age because she was only activated 4 months prior to this, what we see in the show. They programmed her to be a typical 17-year-old, yet she does not act like a 17-year-old. She acts like a retarded 5-year-old. Then the fact that she was programmed with the sole purpose to integrate with organic life forms. Well, surely you can just program it to be that way anyway. And that is the other big issue you got with this character, is it's a hologram. Why can't you just program it to be the best? Why does a hologram have to enlist in Starfleet Academy? Like, it makes no sense. Nor did the things they are now doing with this character, and we're only 3 episodes in, and you're kind of sitting back going, well, hang on, this doesn't make sense. Such as, why does she have to participate in physical exercise? It's a hologram. Plus, why does she seem to be struggling and sweating? Next, you have to ask the question, how and why is she obviously going to be taking a shower? She's either taking the shower or they're going to be taking the shower, where we see them all in the change room after their training session. It's a hologram. Why would it need to shower? Then you run into the issue of she gets beamed out of that area when the War College does the pranks. They start beaming them all out of the locker room and into different areas. And of course, they beam her out and drop her into the pond thing that's in like the lounge area of the ship. 2 problems happen with this part. One is, why is she struggling to breathe under the water when she's a hologram and wouldn't breathe? Therefore, she probably shouldn't be able to cause bubbles. But more importantly, which is the second point, how did they manage to transport a hologram? It's photon particles. You can't transport it. The only way you could transport the Doctor in Voyager was because they locked onto his mobile emitter. But now she's just a holographic being walking around the ship, which would have to mean that the entire ship has holo emitters on it, including the college and the outside of the college, because that's another issue you have. How is this hologram sitting outside in the open air? We see she has no holo emitters. There's no alluding to any holo emitter, like mobile emitter. Like, even the Doctor doesn't have his mobile emitter. They simply seem to exist, but how? There's no explanation. And it's basically, you realize, oh, they must have forgotten that they've made her a hologram, or what holograms are and can do, because it just makes absolutely no sense. So the fact that she panics underwater and causes bubbles out of her mouth, which would mean she's exuding breath, makes no sense. The fact that you can transport the hologram and lock onto it makes no sense. The fact that she's able to be outside the ship and buildings makes no sense. But then you also had the issue in episode 3 where she appears in the War College's dorm area, and she's got the sprays with her to make the fungus stuff grow. She's not transported in there, she appears the way the holograms appear, which means those things in her hands would have to be created via the holograms. Therefore, that shouldn't work. So how does it make the stuff grow? Because that would just be holographic stuff she's spraying in, so it would have no effect on the spores or the fungus, whatever it was. Everything about this character just isn't making sense, including when she's going to shake somebody's hand. So the girl Genesis offers her hand to shake. So it's not like she initiates the shaking of the hand. Genesis already puts her hand out to shake it. And then her response was to do this stupid straight arm practically into Genesis' face. And she has to kind of, no, like this. It's like, if her programming is to integrate with humans and all this stuff and kind of get to know them and be able to work the same as them, how could she not comprehend how to shake a hand when Genesis initiated the handshake? She put her hand out first. It's absolutely insane. And of course, Genesis is obsessed with the Doctor, and the Doctor straight up tells her, I'm nobody's mentor. It's like, so you're on a school that's meant to be a mentorship, you're all meant to be mentors, and yet the Doctor flat out says, I'm nobody's mentor to this character. So there's so many things with the hologram that aren't adding up, and it's clear that they don't have any understanding of the holograms, especially with the fact, now it's not just the fact that they were able to transport the hologram out of the showers, but the question then people were asking is, how the hell did they transport anyone out of the shower area? That would mean you'd have to have transport emitters throughout the entire building and ships. There's no other way you could do it. So, like, you can't lock onto them. They don't have any comm badges on. They're all practically naked. They're in towels, for God's sake. And you were able to transport them. But the fact that you were able to transport the hologram into water where it panics and causes bubbles. Look at Data in Insurrection, when he walks under the water and the kid says to Picard, like, you know, can he hold his breath that long? And Picard replies, like, you know, Data doesn't breathe. Well, won't he rust? And we get that shot of Data. Now, obviously, they had Brent Spiner, the actual actor, underwater. They had him in a tank, playing Data walking, so you can see that he's trying to hold his breath. And you get that one little bubble that comes out. I think it comes out of his nose. But Data, we know, mimics breath. So you can see his stomach going in and out, because it's meant to be, obviously, the actor has to breathe, but they obviously built it into the story that he mimics everything humans can do. So he can breathe, he can drink, all that type of stuff. But they made sure and did their best not to have bubbles coming out of Brent Spiner under the water. And here we have a hologram under the water, bubbles coming out. It's like, that makes no sense. Nor does the fact that the hologram was going to take a shower. Nor does the fact that the hologram was in the training session anyway. Nor does the fact that the hologram isn't just simply programmed to be what it's meant to be. So it's a hologram. It's a program. It is programmed in one certain way. So why can't they just program it to be an ensign or an engineer or whatever? Because this would mean the character of Sam doesn't have its own ambition, which means it doesn't know what it actually wants to be. So it's going through Starfleet Academy, but for what reason? What's its purpose? She hasn't expressed any desire to be a captain or anything like that. So what exactly is her motivation? How are they meant to make it grow? So she'll be this type of 17-year-old forever. And then, of course, we got to the other issue, which creeps up in episode 3, which was, okay, you put it in there for a joke, but not just does it make it look retarded, you then really have to ask the question, why is it trying to lick and taste the fake soil? It wouldn't have any taste buds, so it wouldn't taste it anyway. But why is she doing it? Obviously, it's meant to be a joke, but it's just adding to the whole embarrassment, not just because the entire show is an absolute joke because it's a disaster. But the fact that they are forgetting what this character is. It's clear they forgot that she's a hologram until they needed her to be the hologram in the bloody show, which of course was the fact that, oh look, they can't even shoot her because when they shoot her in the training, the phaser fire stuff just went through her because she was a hologram, which meant when you were doing the game at the end, why didn't you just have her run through the bloody thing? Because we've already been established that you can't shoot her. So now you have that you can't shoot the hologram, but you can transport the hologram. Make that make sense. They can't because they haven't a bloody clue about the holograms. They haven't a clue how it's meant to work. And this character is just an unmitigated disaster and a joke that shouldn't be here. If you want her to be a different species, have her be a different species. But this idea of her being a hologram with this many problems in only 3 episodes is insane. But can't wait for the next one to see how they screw up not just her but everybody else, because if they keep making these type of disasters with screw-ups with characters, I'm probably going to have to do more videos in each character, which God help me. But what do you guys think? Do you think they truly don't understand how holograms work, or do you think they just completely forget every time that she's even a hologram? Let me know what your thoughts are on this. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, and hit that hype button and all that good stuff. Check out memberships. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.